Welcome to The Innovators, the podcast where we talk to the people building the future. In each episode, we sit down with technologists, founders, researchers, and engineers who are doing real, impactful work. They're applying technologies in ways that change how we live, work, and think. Whether it's breakthroughs in AI, climate tech, health systems, or digital infrastructure, this show is about the people turning ambitious ideas into working systems. No hype, just thoughtful conversations with the folks making it happen. Welcome back to The Innovators, a podcast about amazing people doing amazing things. Today's amazing person is Jim Colchin. He's the CEO of iWallet. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, everyone. John, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super. So I think the cool thing about iWallet is I want to talk about iWallet in specifics. So why don't you tell us how it works, what you built out, and then I want to go into your background as well, because I think you were telling me a little bit about that before.
Thank you. Yeah. So iWallet is a new way to take payments for contractors. That's how we started. It's a great way to save a lot of time and money with checks processing and credit card processing. I'm a licensed contractor myself here in California, and I started this to help other contractors. And now iWallet is becoming more than just payments for contractors. It's also payments for distributors, manufacturers, and it's becoming a financial operating system for the whole home service industry.
So this was a project that you built out simply because you needed it, right? You were a contractor before.
Correct. Yeah. I started my first business in 2003, and I worked as a contractor in the field for 15 years. Built up my business from 0 to 8 digits, and I saw the need as a business owner myself and as a technician. And so that's why it's becoming so popular.
So tell me a little bit about that rise. I guess you came over from Central Europe, and you just started being a contractor, right? I think you showed me a picture of you on your bicycle and all the other cool stuff, right?
Right. So I came here in June of 2002 and started my first business in June of 2003. Before that, I didn't have any money. I was selling ice cream, washing cars, sweeping boardwalk in New Jersey, and doing all kinds of odd jobs. So saved up 10 grand and essentially moved to California and started my first business here in 2000.
So why did you move from, I guess you could say, like contracting to service providing? It seems like an interesting move, like a lateral move almost. I mean, why aren't you just installing drywall all day now?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I've realized is that while I enjoy being a contractor, and it's really a happy job where you fix things for people, and people are grateful for what you do, and you feel accomplished. The thing that kind of is difficult about this whole contracting world is that you cannot build a unicorn, right? What they like to call in the tech media, and there are some unicorns in the home service space, but those are true unicorns, right? Much rarer than the ones in the tech industry. And so as a result, I realized that, and then another thing was that your own labor is not as scalable as software. That's another thing I realized later on. And my previous startup was actually a hardware startup, right? It was invented an automated knife sharpening machine. Well, it was a great success, and we sold that startup successfully, but it was still a hardware startup, right? And that's actually how I met you back in the day. Through a hardware startup.
So tell us about building that out. What happened during the hardware startup efforts?
Yeah. So my heart was with hardware, right? Because I like to tinker with things and build things. I really wanted to learn the world of microelectronics and all of these resistors and capacitors and diodes and transistors. How does it all work? Why, when you look at the control board of a refrigerator of an oven, why is it so complicated, and how does it fail? What exactly is going on the inside? And so my first idea was a mailbox sensor, because I've been receiving a lot of money by mail. People would send me all of their checks by mail, and receiving mail on time was really important. And so I came up with this idea of a mailbox sensor back in 2000. I think it was 2013, and it was ready. We manufactured 100 of them. and launched a Kickstarter campaign, and you wrote about it on TechCrunch.
Yeah,
right?
Years ago.
Right, and that's how we met at the TechCrunch Disrupt in New York. I thought mailbox sensors is just so important for people that people would just start buying them, and I was really inspired by folks that were raising millions of dollars on Kickstarter, and I thought I could do the same. And well, it did not work out this way. Let's put it this way.
So that's an interesting point. So you basically jumped from, you didn't jump, but you just moved from thing to thing, and each one, it seems like you got even more successful after every jump. What do you think? What do you think happened there?
Yeah, so I just started learning and really developed a muscle of understanding of how to test things, and really a better understanding of what people want, right? And it comes with age as well. And I think the first thing that I've learned is that you have to, and that was actually when I came across YC and Paul Graham's writings. You have to make something that people want. It seems obvious, but a lot of entrepreneurs and inventors, because that's how I used to think about myself, as inventor first. I thought, okay, I got a patent. That's it. If you have a patent, you made it. People will just come begging you to buy this patent for millions of dollars. That's not how it works, right? That's what I've realized. It's not about what I want, though that matters to a certain degree, but it's just an N of one, right? But it's more about what people want, and that you need to talk to customers to really understand if they want it or not. And it kind of sounds difficult at first, and people might say, I can't, how would I talk to somebody? But you can find a way. If you want your startup to succeed, you have to find a way to talk to people. And there are actually many ways to go talk to customers. I used to think that you can just do a Google survey. That was my other hack. How when they gate content and say, okay, you have to answer this question in order to get this, to gate content, and it doesn't work as well as talking to live people, right? Because a lot of times people would just respond with some information that is irrelevant just to get past the gate. What's really important is to go and talk to people and find a way to talk to people. And for me now at iWallet is actually at trade shows. That's the best way to meet people and talk to them. And that's how it kind of evolved over time. I first looked at hardware, then I realized that it has to be even if it's hardware, but it has to be something that people want. And my next crowdfunding campaign for the knife sharpener raised like $120,000, and you had to have an email list for that. And then from there, I realized that hardware is just not as scalable as software after reading my friend's book called From Rhino to Unicorn, Victor. And from there, I was like, okay, we don't need hardware because it's not as scalable. I just want to find something in software, right? Because we all want to be like Sergey and Zuck, right? We have to have huge companies and do something in software that people want. That's the hardest part to find, actually. But looks like iWallet, after trying for many years, iWallet finally found the product market fit about 3 years ago and became profitable, and we're growing fast.
So two questions. How did you know when you hit that market fit?
Yeah, so I like the saying of David Sachs. The most important metric for that is unaffiliated dollar. It's not a dollar that your friend paid you for your app, right? It's not a dollar that you somehow got your mom to pay, but it's a dollar of a person that you didn't know 6 months ago, and you somehow persuaded to buy your thing, and that's the litmus test, right? That's how you know. And if you can find one, you can find another one, and that's how it starts.
And what's your strategy when it comes to events? I mean, a lot of people go to events and they kind of wander around, and how do you get the most out of that?
Yeah, so the events are a very interesting place. You see so many other vendors like us, marketing companies and providers of all kinds of different services and hardware. And the way we do it is we just try to talk to as many as people as possible, which is hard, because naturally you see most of the vendors, they would just sit at the table and wait for people to come to them to talk to them, but that's not how it works, right? You have to proactively reach out to people and proactively be cheerful about your app and about what you do, and you have to be really extroverted to go to trade shows, even though I'm not an extrovert myself, but you have to make yourself an extrovert, because sometimes you're paying $1,000 an hour just to be at that table. So you have to get everything you have and start talking to people, and then what I found is actually the hardest part is the first 30 minutes and the first couple of people that you talk with. After that, it just flows. You're in the zone, right? And you just, it's like a party, right? Everybody's having a good time, and you just meet new people, you exchange business cards, and then from there, that's how you create partnerships. That's how you learn from people on if what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. And that's one way that trade shows has two parts, right? One is the actual trade show, and the other one is after the trade show, right? That's where that's another secret sauce that I've actually learned from Jason Lemkin at SaaStr. You do dinners, and you invite people that you want to meet for a nice dinner, and that's a great intimate way to meet new people, and you bring your existing customers as well, and they become your brand ambassadors, right? For just a simple dinner, those that love your product can't stop talking about you. So dinners and tabletops, that's probably the way, at least in the B2B space, that's the way to do it.
Okay, very cool. All right, what's next for the company? What are you building out next?
Yeah, so there are many ways we can take it. There are so many interesting things that are going on. Repair AI is one of them. We feel like we found a lot of interesting innovations in that space. We actually filed a whole bunch of patents around this. It's kind of like Harvey for legal, right? Open evidence for medical. Repair AI is for the home service space. So it has a really big potential, and we're working in that direction. Another kind of our core product is accounts receivables, and we're adding other interesting things like accounts payables. Soon it would be checking accounts and credit. Those are kind of the typical banking products, and that's how we become the financial operating system. We just launched extended warranties as well with our partner. That's super exciting. We'll see how that goes. It's all about A/B testing and seeing if the market wants your product or not. But we have our first sales, and that's super exciting. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, very cool. All right, so folks can check you out at iWallet.com. You can go over there. So if they know of a contractor or somebody, HVAC person, they should just connect there, and they can start using the app.
Yeah. So go to iWallet.com. Click sign up. It takes about 15 minutes to sign up. Or if you want to see a demo first, like most of the people, they want to see a demo first, reach out to us to hello@iWallet.com or directly to me. I'm Jim at iWallet.com. We'll be happy to walk you through a demo personally, and hopefully we can earn your business. Yeah, the app has no sign-up fees, no monthly fees, and no long-term contracts. And contractors with 5 or more technicians really love our checks processing product. Right, you don't have to send checks by mail anymore. You don't have to use log boxes. That's going to be a game changer for your business.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Jim. This has been The Innovators. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next time.